Back to another episode of the Casey Campbell podcast. Casey Campbell with you, of course. And with all this news today, we figured we'd catch up with our good friend of the channel, Ben Schneider, my former colleague on Grid Network. How's it going?
It's going well, Casey. Thanks for having me back on. It's been a little while.
Well, yeah, it has been. It's always good to talk to you. Of course, also, you are a contributor to Brockbeard's lastcar.info. By the way, if you haven't checked out all three parts of After Allen, go do that on Brock's channel. It's really good. A lot of us obviously with what I do for with what I do for a living, it's with the Quickie program. It is we obviously a lot of people attached to that team were we really appreciate what Brock did. So trying to look maybe possibly setting up another interview maybe on the Quickie channel with Brock. So maybe that could be in the works. So we'll see. But anyway, before we get to the big racing news today, we must ask you, I know you have not had a chance to watch Pat Sajak's last Wheel of Fortune, but your thoughts on it being done?
Yeah, well, I was a little surprised that there wasn't a little bit more fanfare and build up to it. I guess, maybe that's not Pat Sajak's style necessarily to have this massive retirement tour or anything like that. But I did watch his farewell message. Of course, I was traveling and obviously working with Sonoma weekend on that Friday actually, which was his last show, and didn't haven't it's on my DVR. Haven't gotten a chance to watch it yet, but I did see his farewell message, and yeah, man. I mean, 41 years is an incredible run. I think it even goes a little bit longer than that when you factor in the daytime version of Wheel of Fortune. But I mean, my to put it in perspective, my dad and I were reminiscing when the news first broke last year, and he was talking about how he was in middle school and Pat Sajak was doing the show, and it's just kind of been something that has always been on the TV that he's always been doing, and it's kind of surreal to think that you know, I guess when you think of the big three, right, like Bob Barker, Alex Trebek, and Pat Sajak that had 35 plus year runs with their respective shows. Sajak was the last one still standing here, and all three of them now, are no longer hosting their respective shows. But I'm sure Ryan Seacrest is going to give it a strong run himself, and he's, I think, a lot younger than people might realize. So I wouldn't put it past him to do this for 20 or 30 years himself as well.
Yeah, unfortunately, Sajak's the only one out of those three you mentioned that are still currently living right now.
That's true as well. Yeah.
Um, so going in from that, I mean, just with with all the shows ending, what really impressed you with all the because there's been a lot of interesting shows. Do we want to give your do you want to give your I don't know if you've ever I don't know if you've seen Quiz with Balls yet, so I'm not gonna press you on that, but
I have not heard very good things about it, so it's on my watch list. I will try to check out an episode when I can, but I am not my expectations are not that high. I'll just leave it at that.
yeah. Um, Overall, I think it's your thoughts overall on everything that's happened. There's been a lot of good stuff, especially on the, with Jeopardy, with their kind of their consistency with Ken Jennings now. It was a pretty good year in the game show world.
Yeah, I really like the floor, I gotta tell you.
I do too. That
I
was
still wish
I
Fox
got
would
into that really good.
yeah, yeah, I still wish Fox would bring back Reed, but that's just beating a dead horse at this point. I'm sure
Yes, yeah, they do need to bring that back. At
I'm in
least
a
put all the
stall.
episodes on like Pluto TV or something.
Yeah, yeah, put the original run somewhere. That would be nice. But yeah, I really like that one. I can't believe the Weakest Link is still burning through a third season of episodes. My goodness, how has that show survived
They're
through
bringing celebrities on now.
yeah, yeah, it's crazy. And it's a shame because it's a good format. I think they've got a great host, but it's just so poorly put together.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you the one thing that really surprised me, I think I kind of came around, I warmed up to Deal or No Deal Island, which I did not expect myself to be doing. I still think the format is, not great in terms of the actual Deal or No Deal gameplay, but I was like, you know what? I like Survivor. I like Boston Rob. He's obviously a Survivor legend. So hearing that he was going to be a part of a season, I figured I would at least check it out as long as he was still on the show. And he ultimately made it. Spoiler alert if you haven't seen it or if you care. He ultimately made it as far as the very beginning of the final episode was when he got eliminated. So I ended up watching the whole thing, and the grand reveal at the end of who the banker was, was an interesting sort of deal as well. But that was one that I really was not expecting to enjoy as much as I did. I guess you can say it was one of my guilty pleasures this year. I don't even know if we should call it a traditional game show, because when I think of a game show, I think of something that takes place over a single episode, or at least has sort of you know built solely on game show aspects. Maybe it's a tournament that takes place through a whole season, like the American Bible Challenge was for GSN back in the day.
Yeah.
But I think it's kind of one of those. I think a lot of people consider Survivor a game show in many respects, even though I factor it in more so on reality competition. But
Right.
this one was one where the line was really blended. But regardless, I think the deal or no deal aspect alone puts it as part of a game show family. So I'll say that was another one that I enjoyed a lot more than I was expecting. I'll leave it there.
You mentioned the floor. I got really into that. I watched every episode. I think I got my parents into it too. It's just like some of like the questions, like the pictures that popped up there. Obviously, it would. I think we'd take a different approach if we were the ones that were on stage trying to guess them all. But some of them, some of them, I was thinking of you. I'm like, why did they miss that? Um, but overall, different cat. What would if you were on that show as well? What would your category be?
It would probably have to do with either motorsports or game shows. I don't know what I would narrow it down to. Maybe like F1 world champions, or a game show host, I guess. I don't know. It would have to be something
Yeah,
like that, I guess. But
yeah. It was. I mean, if you hang around the entire game, you can. You know, if I'm not mistaken, she just hung around in the eventual winner. She hung around that little back corner, right in the back there, and it carried her way all the way to the finals and won it. So that was it was a lot of twists and turns, and um, some of them I were able to get. I mean, I played along with it. I knew what they were, but
yeah.
it was quite entertaining. I hope they bring that back. I think they will. I'm not sure. Um,
Yeah, I think the ratings were decent enough, so we'll see.
yeah.
I don't know. Fox can be kind of hit or miss sometimes, but a lot of their music shows seem to at least get multiple seasons, so we'll see.
Staying on the topic of Fox, well, it kind of brings us into the next segment.
Segue. Yeah.
The next segue of this podcast. Of course, it was announced and expected that IndyCar is going over to Fox Sports after the 2024 season. All network races are going to be on Big Fox, along with Indy 500 qualifying both days. So 19 network races, practicing qualifying on FS1 and FS2. Some Indy Next races are going to be on FS1. That's a big deal for that series. Um, the thing is, I was reading through social media today, and not too surprising, a lot of people were not happy with this. I think because of, I think you know why.
Yeah, well, the reputation that NASCAR and Fox has, I think, plays no small role in that. But I'll tell you this. If all you know is all 17 races plus 2 days of Indy 500 qualifying are going to be on network TV, all of practice and qualifying is going to be on linear television. You don't need a Peacock subscription or whatever to watch those. And then all of Indy Next is going to be on linear television. A lot of it, a top tier cable sports channel. If that's all you know, I think that's objectively a great deal.
Yeah.
But then
It's,
you factor in the fact that it's Fox. And I think people have the idea, and justifiably so, because I think that, particularly the Xfinity and truck broadcasts leave a lot to be desired. Based on how NASCAR on Fox's coverage has, I think it's fair to say, declined in the eyes of most people over the last 10 or 12 years or so, probably. Excuse me. I think that fans look at that and they think to themselves, well, this network's going to give IndyCar a try. Does that mean we're going to get the cartoon caricatures? Are we going to get a Michael Waltrip grid walk, or maybe a Paul Tracy grid walk if we're going with an IndyCar driver there that they might want to bring onto their coverage? Or Are we gonna, have these random camera cuts at the wrong periods of time, which I don't think we are, by the way, because as far as I understand it, IMS Productions is still going to retain
Yes, yeah, IMF
significant
Productions
control
is
over that.
still in their role. I know that
Right.
Nathan Brown of IndyStar, many others have said, and obviously it's something David Land talked about as well, that IMS Productions is going to continue their role, of course, with Fox as they have with NBC and ABC, and was there down the road. But I don't think you'll see the production side of it. It's the other factors could be.
Yeah. Yeah. So just to draw it back, again, I think that the production aspect is probably going to be fine unless Fox insists on, maybe in 26 or down the road taking more control. Then I would get really nervous for that. But I think actually watching an IndyCar race on Fox, I don't think is going to be as bad of an experience as people are expecting it to be.
Right.
It's the pre-race and post-race coverage and the social media aspect of it, and people wondering how much promotion Fox is going to put into this. They do have the Super Bowl and the Daytona 500, so I think that's a massive opportunity to get Indy 500 promos in front of a lot of eyeballs next year. So that's going to be interesting to see if that translates over to the ratings. But I think on the whole, on paper, it's a great day for IndyCar and specifically Indy Next, like you mentioned. I'm glad you brought that up. We might actually get an idea of how many people are watching these next races. We might actually, as I know David Land brought this up as well, I think it makes Indy Next much more appealing to potential sponsors, a
Yeah.
lot more opportunity for them to get in front of a larger audience. So I think there are a lot of positives to this. The downside is that obviously the NFL is king over everything, as we well
Absolutely.
know.
And that will
Peacock
always,
subscribers certainly know that. And so because Fox broadcasts the NFL, you're kind of put into this bubble where, it doesn't really make much sense for the season to run past August 31st. So I feel for the teams. I think, having 5 races in 4 weeks in July, one of them being a doubleheader, I think is going to put a huge strain on the mechanics and
right.
the engineers traveling from track to track to put these races on. It's going to be great if you're a fan, I guess, having all that racing on back-to-back weeks, but certainly hard on the teams. Um, so, the schedule, and of course, we hear this cry every year. We need more ovals. We're working on more ovals. And, where are they when the schedule comes out? So,
Yeah.
and thermal coming back as well. You know, I guess the rich get richer, right? We've got to, you
Absolutely.
know, keep those people happy. So that's going to be a points paying race this year, which I guess will
Yeah.
be, whatever. So the schedule is still very weak in my mind. So I understand that it's not something you can just snap your finger and bring, Nazareth Speedway back overnight. As much as I would love to do that, I know that that is absolutely not going to happen. You don't have to tell me. I am well aware of the legal ramifications of that. If you know, you know. Um, so yeah, I feel that the schedule still needs some work. It's not perfect by any means, and I do have a lot of reservations about how Fox will handle promoting the series.
Yeah.
But on the whole, on paper, it's a great deal and one of the best business to business sort of deals, I think, for a sports entity in a very long time.
Yeah, I was just going through. I think on Twitter, I just read all the things that Fox is going to have in 2025. The Super Bowl, the Daytona 500, the Indy 500 now. Two of the two for the first time ever in full length, in flag to flag, both races will be on the same network, and that is a huge deal for Fox. Also, the World Series, of course, will be on Fox. Maybe the Phillies can actually win this year on Fox or something. Is it? Yeah. Okay. Um, and then I just took a jab at the Phillies. Hey, they're doing really well right now.
I
So
know, yeah, but it's the reverse of what the Braves have done the last year. You win 100 games, you get the bye, and then you lose all your momentum. So
absolutely.
I think I'd almost rather be the wild card team, but
It's gonna, I think it might bite the Yankees too, but with what they've been doing, it's
yeah,
yeah, I mean, I don't want to go up against Juan Soto at all. So but not to go off that tangent, also the Belmont Stakes, Michigan, Ohio State, the college, obviously one of the biggest rivalries in college football, the Big Ten championship game, and lots of other huge events are going to be on the Fox network. I can't remember that's a pretty stout lineup if you're and obviously the
Yeah.
networks all have their quote unquote big events. Obviously, NBC's got the US Open for golf. Of course, CBS has had the Masters for so many years. Of course, NBC has also the Kentucky Derby. And then, of course, ESPN's got the NBA Finals, Stanley Cup Finals, all that. So every network's got their like big event, and Fox has a lot of them this year. So
Yeah.
should be interesting to see how they kind of do it. So, um, let's segue into this. Someone that may not be racing on the Fox network next year is Martin Truex Jr. because it's potentially rumored that he could be retiring. And he will likely announce his retirement on Friday. It's been reported by The Athletic and confirmed by multiple other reporters out there.
Uh,
What are your what is it? We've talked about this hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times about possibly Martin Truex Jr. being this the year that he hangs it up, but it sounds like this is the year that he's going to do it.
yeah, I think once multiple outlets jump on it, you can say it's pretty much good as official there. And I know he'll give I guess you get these up pretty quickly, right? We can say tomorrow and everybody will know what we're talking about here. That he'll give that press conference. But yeah, I mean, I can't say I'm too surprised. It seems like he's been sort of on a year-to-year sort of deal with JGR over the last 2 or 3 years now. So not a huge shocker by any means. I still think that if he wanted to come back next year, I think he's certainly performing at a level where he could. Probably should have finished second at Sonoma last week until he ran out of fuel on the final lap. So he's still capable of competing at a very high level, and I think that his fans are certainly going to be disappointed to see him go. But at the same time, I think that's something that can be admirable about athletes at the same time is wanting to go out on top while you're still competitive and not wanting to sort of linger and having final few years of your career be a situation where you're just filling out the field and just kind of showing up content with a 15th to 20th place finish. I don't think that's in Martin Truex Jr.'s DNA. I think he spent enough of the beginning half of his career doing that. I think he's probably, if not the greatest, one of the greatest late bloomers in the history of a NASCAR Cup Series. It really wasn't that long ago. I mean, just 10 years ago, the guy only had 2 career wins and was, looking like his career was almost dead on arrival with a small single car team at Furniture Row Racing. And then 3 years later, they signed a deal with Toyota and Gibbs to get that alliance and manufacturer support. And they were champions of the Cup Series. And it's one of the most remarkable underdog stories, I think, in modern NASCAR history. Obviously, the deal with Furniture Row came to an end the next year, and he's been with Gibbs ever since and has been a championship contender multiple times. Probably should have had another one or two if things had gone slightly differently at Homestead or Phoenix. So, I mean, he's certainly one of the superstars of the last several years of our sport. Even though his name isn't frequently mentioned among the Kyle Bushes and Kevin Harvicks and Joey Logano's of the world. He certainly deserves that recognition. And yeah, it's going to be kind of surreal to see him gone next year. Really surreal to think that Joey Logano is going to be the active Ironman consecutive starts leader, given that he came in to the Cup Series when he was still 18. I think if he stays long enough, he might have a shot at Jeff Gordon's record in a few years. But, Truex has been one of the last remaining few drivers that's been around since the first year, but I really started following full time, which was 2007. And, again, gonna be like every other major name from our childhood that's retired in recent years. A little bit weird not seeing him out on track in 2025.
Yeah, it is going to be because I know if you followed the sport for, I mean, a lot of people say that, the old guard was kind of gone. Well, obviously Harvick was kind of the last link to, the Winston era in 2003. And then, of course, there's, really up until like the heyday of the sport, which I would say was really around 2006, through the TV contract. I mean, Denny and Kyle and Martin are the last three, I think. I can't remember really anybody else that was around during that time that's actively competing full time. Yeah, Jimmy's still out there every now and then, um, but yeah, that's really it. But it'll be interesting to see how things go because silly season could get really interesting this year with a lot of moving pieces around. So we'll have to see how that goes. Oh, also totally forgot about this. What are your thoughts on okay, it's been an interesting well, let's go back to Fox. What is the most with what do you think about race up going away?
Again, it's not too surprising. And I've got to confess, as disappointed as I am to see it go, I was not watching it nearly as religiously as I used to. It used to be appointment television, but I think that's true for a lot of linear sports television. Just as kind of a landscape has changed. You catch stuff on your DVR or streaming or whatever. You just go to Twitter on one of these things, and or X. I'm sorry, I'm never gonna get over that name change, but
Yeah,
you just the way we consume media is completely different now, and I think just from a business standpoint, the fact that Fox is, while they're not totally done, they're still going to have trucks and the first portion of the Cup schedule.
yeah,
They are scaling back a lot of their NASCAR coverage starting next year, so it supposedly, I guess you could say, makes sense to shut down a studio-based, daily show like that dedicated to the sport. But the flip side is, it is the end of an era. It's really the last remnant from Speed Channel and a lot of those employees who have been with that show as long as the Speed Channel days going back that far. Um, you know, you never like to see stuff like this happen because it means certain people that have had a job for a very long time are no longer going to have that job starting next year. So hopefully, we have a couple of new media partners coming in next season. Maybe they can land somewhere there at a similar sort of environment. But for me, again, I got to confess, I didn't watch it as much in recent years, but I would still tune in from time to time. And again, kind of a staple of my childhood that is going away.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, of course, as you know, as we kind of make the transition, with NBC taking over at least the Cup and Xfinity side, Fox will still have obviously the last 10 truck races and the remaining ARCA races on there. So obviously, tune into those. But what are we expecting out of NBC's coverage this year?
Well, it's going to be interesting. As far as I know there were those reports that after the Olympics, Lee Diffie's supposed to come in and do some
Yeah,
NASCAR races, which is very exciting. Um, we'll see if the dynamic changes without Dale Jr. this year. Again, I know that is one of my more unpopular opinions, that I just have not been a huge fan of him on NBC's coverage, at least in the booth. I think the download is great, and when he's been in a studio role like he's been on NASCAR America in the past, I think he does a fine job there. It's just reacting in real time in the booth. I don't think he's been as great as people have made him out to be, but that's just my opinion. We'll see how he does over at Turner and Prime next year. But yeah, it's certainly gonna be a different feeling this year for sure on NBC. But again, from a production standpoint, as much as I think they have just as many flaws as Fox in many respects, I do think there are things that are a step up when we go to NBC over Fox. It's just my belief is that we should hold them to the same standard that we hold Fox. We shouldn't let Fox fatigue get in the way of us criticizing NBC shortcomings just because we're so thankful that it's no longer a Fox broadcast. I think that NBC sometimes gets away with a little bit more in the eyes of social media than if that had been Fox screwing something up in a similar way, I feel like we'd be all over them. So I hope that we can do a better job of holding them to the same standard the second half of the year. But given how much criticism there was, and again, justifiably so, taking a split screen commercial with 6 laps to go at Sonoma before going to a full screen promo for Kevin Harvick's podcast, certainly not great. And then the chaos in the last lap of Truex running out of gas. Thank goodness Clint Boyer noticed that because it certainly took their cameras a while to get there. So it is going to be a breath of fresh air in certain aspects, but then again, you also go from Mike Joy to Rick Allen, which again, nothing personal. It's just I think one is significantly stronger in that role than the other is. So we'll leave it there.
all right. And all right. Well, Ben, thanks so much for the time as always. And we'll talk to you soon whenever else something else breaks.
You know where to find me. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of big news stories falling into place here as we get ready for a year of change for both NASCAR and IndyCar. So we'll look forward to that.
Absolutely.